People think I'm poor. Maybe because I let them. But peace, not wealth, is what I work for. Every morning begins the same way. The soft hum of the city outside my window, the hiss of the kettle, the quiet drip of coffee into my old ceramic mug. My apartment is small, just enough space for me and my thoughts. A secondhand table, mismatched chairs, curtains that I sold myself years ago. To anyone who visits, it's just a modest home belonging to a middle-aged woman living an ordinary life. But I don't mind the assumptions. In fact, I prefer them. I wear simple clothes, faded cotton blouses, long skirts, comfortable shoes. I take the bus to work every morning, sitting among students, laborers, and office workers scrolling through their phones. Sometimes I see people glance at me, maybe wondering if I'm someone's grandmother trying to stretch her pension. I smile politely and look out the window. They have no idea that the woman sitting beside them owns the very company that built half the buildings we pass. I wasn't always like this. Life taught me to be. When I lost my husband 25 years ago, I was left with a 4-year-old boy, a mountain of debt, and no clear idea how to survive. I can still remember standing outside the hospital that day, Daniel's tiny hand in mine, and my heart heavier than my purse. People came to console me, yes, but their pity stung more than the grief. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted strength. So I worked. I worked like my life depended on it, because it did. At first, I was just a junior assistant in a small accounting firm. I made coffee, organized files, and listened more than I spoke. But every night, when Daniel fell asleep, I studied. Finance, management, economics, anything I could find. Knowledge became my weapon, and I sharpened it every single day. Over time, I moved up. I was promoted, poached, transferred, and finally, I took a risk. I started a small consulting business from my kitchen table. That small idea turned into Aurora Holdings, a name no one associated with me because I kept it that way. I was the quiet hand behind the curtain, the voice in the boardroom no one expected. That's me. Sometimes I wonder if Daniel would be proud of me if he knew, but then I remind myself why I never told him. I didn't want him to grow up feeling small in my shadow. I wanted him to understand the value of hard work, not handouts. So I let him believe I lived a simple life on a modest retirement fund, and he never asked for more. That in itself was my reward. This morning was like any other. I packed my bag, locked my apartment door, and walked to the bus stop. The city was waking up, sunlight spilling between buildings, shopkeepers rolling up their shutters, children running late for school. I like blending in. It reminded me of the days when survival was my only goal. When I arrived at the office, a quiet corner of the city where Aurora's secondary branch operated, I greeted the receptionist like always. She smiled and offered me tea, never guessing I was the one signing her paychecks. I spent the day reviewing documents, approving projects, and making phone calls to executives who addressed me with the kind of respect that never reached my neighbors' ears. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was Thomas, one of my senior directors. "Madam," he said, "the investors from Singapore confirmed the merger. They'd like to arrange a personal meeting next week." "Good. But make sure the credit goes to the junior team that prepared the presentation. They did the real work." "Yes, madam, of course." When I ended the call, I noticed a sleek black car waiting outside my window, my company car. My driver, Sam, stood beside it, holding the door open. He waved politely. I smiled and shook my head, pointing toward the bus stop down the street. He nodded, used to my quiet refusal. Some people crave recognition. I've had enough of it to know it's a double-edged sword. The fewer people who know who I truly are, the more peace I have. I got home just before sunset. My apartment was still and familiar. I made dinner, rice, vegetables, and a little soup, and sat down to eat alone. The TV murmured softly in the background, playing the news. A segment came on about a new partnership between Aurora Holdings and a major European firm. The anchor's tone was excited, reverent even. The company's CEO remains anonymous, but insiders describe her as brilliant, disciplined, and notoriously private. I smiled faintly and took another bite of rice. They always made it sound like a mystery. Maybe I liked it that way. My phone rang just as I finished dinner. The caller ID made me smile. "Daniel," I said, picking up. "Hey, Mom." He was warm, cheerful, a little hurried as always. "How was your day?" "Busy," I admitted, "but good. How about you?" He hesitated before answering. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. I wanted to ask you something." I could hear the nervousness in his tone. "What is it, dear?" "So, Lily's parents are visiting from abroad this weekend. We're having dinner with them, and I really want you to come. It's kind of important." "Of course," I said instantly. "When and where?" "Saturday evening," he said, relief in his voice. "At La Vielle Masson. You know, that fancy place near the river?" "I know it." He chuckled. "Yeah, it's kind of fancy. But don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of everything." That made me pause. My son, the boy who once cried when he couldn't afford new shoes, was now offering to pay for dinner. I felt a quiet pride swell in my chest. "That's very kind, Daniel," I said. "I'll be there." "What time?" 7 sharp. "And, Mom?" "Yes?" "Don't stress about what to wear, okay? Lily's parents can be a little formal. But just be yourself. They'll love you." I smiled even though he couldn't see me. "I always am, sweetheart." We hung up, and for a long while I just sat there, phone in hand, staring at the city lights outside my window. I thought about Lily's parents, the ones Daniel had mentioned before. Well-traveled, wealthy, opinionated. People used to polish things, perfect homes, perfect manners, perfect appearances. And then there was me, the poor mother who took the bus to work and lived in a small apartment. A part of me wondered how they would treat me. Another part of me already knew. But still I was curious, because people reveal their hearts fastest when they believe you have nothing to offer them. I glanced at the old clock on the wall. The second hand ticked softly, steady and sure. I didn't know it then, but that dinner would change everything. Not just for Daniel, not just for Lily's parents, but for me too. That night, I smiled to myself and whispered, "Let's see what kind of hearts they have." My phone screen lit up again. Daniel's message, "Can't wait for you to meet them, Mom." I smiled, not knowing that dinner would test everyone's heart. Daniel called again the next evening. I could hear it in his voice, the nervous laugh, the small pauses. He was trying to sound casual, but I've known that boy since he was a heartbeat in my chest. "Mom," he said, "I just wanted to make sure you're okay with everything for Saturday." "I am, Daniel," I said softly. "It's just dinner." "Yeah, but Lily's parents can be a bit traditional," he continued, choosing his words carefully. "They have, certain expectations. They're old-fashioned about family background and all that." There it was, high standards, dressed up in polite language. I smiled to myself. "Are you worried they'll judge me, Daniel?" No, it's not that," he said quickly, too quickly. "It's just they can be particular. But Lily's told them how wonderful you are, so it'll be fine, I promise." He didn't realize he had said, "how wonderful you are," in the same breath as, "it'll be fine." Like he needed to convince himself. After we hung up, I sat by the window for a while, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. My reflection in the glass looked older than I remembered. Lines around my eyes, silver strands framing my face. Maybe to people like Lily's parents, that would make me invisible. Still, I wasn't hurt, just thoughtful. They wanted to meet the mother of the man their daughter married, but would they still smile if they thought I had nothing? That question lingered in my mind all night. The next morning, I met my friend Clara for breakfast. She's been my confidant for years, the only person who knows the truth about my company and the life I hide. She listened quietly as I told her about the dinner. When I mentioned my little plan, she put down her coffee cup with a sharp clink. "You're going to pretend to be poor?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "Not pretend, just be myself, the self everyone already believes I am." "Don't be stubborn," she said, sighing. "You could just go there looking like the accomplished woman you are. You've earned that right." I smiled. "That's exactly why I don't need to prove it." Clara shook her head. "You're testing them." "I'm testing everyone," I admitted, "including Daniel. I want to see how he handles it, if he still stands by me when others look down on me." She leaned back in her chair and studied me for a long moment. "You've always been brave, Alan, but sometimes bravery looks a lot like trouble waiting to happen." "Maybe, but I've learned that people's true colors show when they think you're beneath them. I want to know what kind of people Lily's family really are." Clara sighed again, but smiled faintly. "Well, if anyone can teach them a lesson in humility, it's you." Saturday arrived faster than I expected. I woke early, took a long shower, and stood before my wardrobe. On one side, elegant dresses, silk blouses, and shoes that cost more than my first month's rent years ago. On the other, a few worn cardigans, plain skirts, and a faded handbag with a loose strap. My hand hovered between the two worlds. Then I chose the simpler one. I dressed neatly, but plainly, tied my hair back, and slipped my old purse over my shoulder. I checked my reflection one last time. I looked like what I used to be, an ordinary, aging woman who had worked hard all her life and never quite escaped modest living. It felt right. Instead of calling my driver, I walked to the bus stop. The air was crisp, the evening sun low and golden. The ride was familiar, crowded, noisy, filled with chatter and perfume and sighs. A teenager offered me his seat. I smiled and declined. When I arrived at the restaurant, I stood outside for a moment, taking it in. La Vieille Maison. The name glowed in gold letters. A valet opened the door for me, then paused, his eyes flickering to my outfit before quickly looking away. I could see the question on his face. Is she in the right place? I gave him a polite nod and walked in. The restaurant was elegant. Chandeliers, soft music, polished marble floors. Waiters moved like dancers, quiet and precise. I felt the subtle shift of eyes toward me, the unspoken curiosity. I was used to it. A hostess approached me, smiling with professional courtesy. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Under the name Bennett. I'm a little early." She nodded and led me to a table near the corner, private, comfortable, with a view of the entrance. I thanked her and sat down, my hands folded in my lap. I ordered water and waited. The hum of the room filled the silence. Soft laughter, clinking glasses, the rustle of expensive clothes. I thought of Daniel then, imagining him pacing at home, telling Lily to remind her parents to be kind, to please not embarrass him. I smiled at the thought. He always worried too much. A few minutes passed before I saw them, Lily's parents. They entered with a kind of confidence that filled the room before they even spoke. Her father wore a tailored suit that looked custom-made, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. Her mother glided beside him, her jewelry catching the light, her smile the kind that knew it could command attention. They didn't notice me at first. Why would they? To me, I was just another diner, another face in the background. But in a few minutes, they'd find out who I was supposed to be, and I'd find out who they really were. I took a slow sip of water, steadying myself, not because I was nervous, but because I wanted to remember this moment, the calm before the masks came off. They approached the table with polished confidence, their voices calm and their smiles practiced, completely unaware that the poor woman waiting in the corner was the one who would change how they saw themselves forever.
I could feel the faint tremor in Daniel's voice as he greeted me at the restaurant entrance. "Mom, you made it," he said, his smile tight around the edges. His tie was slightly crooked, his palms sweaty when he hugged me. I could tell. He was nervous. Inside, the air was cool, the lights dimmed to a golden warmth. It was one of those elegant restaurants where the sound of laughter is low and controlled, like everyone's afraid to be too real. I smiled to myself. I had been in places far fancier than this, but tonight I wasn't here as a CEO. I was here as a mother, a poor one, apparently. Lily waved when she saw me. She looked beautiful. Soft pink dress, hair neatly tied. A little nervous, too. She rushed over and hugged me, her voice cheerful, but I could hear the tension underneath. "Mrs. Collins, I'm so glad you came." I smiled warmly. "Of course, dear. I wouldn't miss it." Behind her, her parents stood up from their seats. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, both impeccably dressed, the kind of people who spoke with quiet confidence, used measured smiles, and looked at people the way one might glance at a price tag, politely, but with calculation. "Ah, this must be Daniel's mother," Mr. Anderson said, offering his hand. His grip was firm, practiced. "Pleasure to finally meet you." "The pleasure's mine," I replied, keeping my tone calm, my smile gentle. Mrs. Anderson's gaze traveled from my shoes to my bag, the old leather purse I'd carried for years. "You have such a simple style," she said, with a tinkling laugh. "I admire women who don't fuss over appearances." Her tone was kind enough on the surface, but the subtext cut sharp. I just smiled. "Thank you. I find comfort in simplicity." Daniel shifted beside me, clearing his throat. "Shall we sit?" We took our seats, and the performance began. The waiter arrived with menus, bowing slightly. Mr. Anderson waved him off with a casual air of authority. We'll have the chef's special tasting course and your finest wine, please." He looked at me briefly, then turned back to the waiter. "And perhaps something light for her." I met his gaze with a smile. "I'll just have a bowl of soup, thank you. That'll be perfect." Mrs. Anderson raised her eyebrows. "Just soup? Oh, you must be watching your spending. Very wise in times like these." Daniel looked as if he wanted to disappear into his chair. Lily reached for his hand under the table. "Mom, please." "Oh, darling," Mrs. Anderson said smoothly. "I didn't mean anything by it. It's just refreshing to meet someone who doesn't live beyond her means." I laughed softly. "Don't worry, I'm not offended. I've lived long enough to know that not every richness shows on the surface." Her expression faltered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "How poetic." The conversation turned to safe topics. Weather, travel, their new house abroad. They spoke of their trips to Europe, their private club membership, the charity gala they hosted last spring. Every word dripped with carefully disguised pride. I listened patiently, sipping my soup. Occasionally, they asked me a question, not out of curiosity, but out of politeness. "So, Mrs. Collins, what do you do these days?" Mr. Anderson began. "Oh, I work with a small firm. Mostly management work. Keeps me busy." He nodded, uninterested. "Ah, I see. That's good. Hard work builds character, doesn't it?" "Yes, it does. Some people stop working once they reach comfort. Others find comfort in never stopping." He didn't understand. He just nodded again, his eyes already moving toward his wine glass. Lily tried to shift the topic to Daniel. "Dad, Mom, Daniel's been doing well at his job. He's up for a promotion soon." Mr. Anderson smiled indulgently. "That's nice, dear. But of course, you'll understand. We just want to make sure our daughter's future is stable. These days, stability is everything." There it was, the polite concern that wasn't about love, but about worth. Daniel looked down at his plate. I could feel his discomfort. He wasn't angry. He was ashamed. Ashamed that his parents-in-law might be looking down on me, and that he hadn't told them who I really was. I placed my hand on his gently under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "It's all right," I whispered, because I wasn't hurt, not yet. I was studying them, the way a teacher studies her students before the final exam. Dessert came, and with it more wine and loose tongues. Mr. Anderson leaned back, clearly proud of himself. "You know, I've been in talks with a few big firms lately. We're hoping to close a partnership with one in particular, Everwin Group. Maybe you've heard of it." I lifted my spoon slowly. "Everwin Group?" I repeated. "Yes," Mrs. Anderson chimed in. "It's a massive company, very exclusive. We've been trying to meet the CEO for months. She's apparently impossible to get a hold of." I smiled faintly, stirring my coffee. "Yes, I've heard she values discretion." "Exactly," Mr. Anderson said, laughing. "People like that, they live in another world entirely. But who knows? Maybe one day we'll be sitting across from her too." For a moment, I let silence linger, just long enough for the irony to breathe. Then I said softly, "Yes, maybe sooner than you think." Daniel looked at me, confused, maybe sensing something in my tone, but I didn't explain. Not yet. Instead, I smiled at the Andersons, my expression kind, composed. because the dinner wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As the waiter cleared the table, a tall man in a dark suit walked toward us. He bowed deeply to me. "Madam Collins," he said with quiet respect, "the car is ready. Would you like me to prepare your documents for tomorrow's board meeting?" The room fell silent. The Andersons froze. The name Collins echoed like a bell. Their eyes widened in disbelief, and I just smiled, because the real dinner was only beginning. The dinner continued like a well-rehearsed play, with me as the quiet, unimpressive extra sitting at the corner of their spotlight. Mr. Anderson's voice carried easily across the table, rich and confident. "You know, Mrs. Collins, the business world is a battlefield. Only those with sharp instincts survive." I nodded politely, sipping my soup. "Yes, that's true." He smiled, clearly pleased to be the teacher tonight. "I've built my entire career on networking. Connections, relationships, those are the real assets, not just numbers on a balance sheet." His wife nodded approvingly. "That's why we've been trying to reach out to Everwin Group. They're powerful, but their CEO, what's her name again?" She glanced at her husband. Mr. Anderson chuckled. "No one actually knows. That's the thing. She's like a ghost. They say she never gives interviews, never shows up at public events. She just lets her results speak. Mysterious woman." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "If I could meet her once, I'd make a deal in minutes. She's known to be impossible to reach." I smiled faintly, stirring the last spoonful of my soup. "Impossible, perhaps, unless she's sitting across from you." There was a pause, a heartbeat of silence. Mrs. Anderson gave a quick laugh, the kind people make when they don't understand the joke but don't want to seem out of place. "Oh, you're funny," she said, waving her hand. I smiled again, this time without answering. They didn't ask what I meant. People rarely do when they've already decided who you are. Mr. Anderson cleared his throat, turning to me again. "So, Mrs. Collins, you mentioned you work in management?" "I used to. Now I'm retired. I just oversee a few things from time to time." "Ah, retired," Mrs. Anderson said, her tone polite but dismissive. "Must be nice to relax after all those years of, office work." I met her eyes. "Yes, it is nice. Though I don't think one ever truly stops working, not when you've built something from the ground up." Daniel shifted beside me, his jaw tight. He was trying to stay calm, trying not to make a scene, but I could sense his frustration. Lily noticed it too. She said, "Dad, Mom, maybe we could talk about something else?" "Oh, we're just curious," her mother interrupted, smiling sweetly. "After all, Daniel married into our family, but we hardly know his background. We want to understand where he comes from." Her words were wrapped in charm, but the intention was as clear as glass. They wanted to measure him. Inside, I stayed still, but my thoughts were sharper than ever. You want to understand where he comes from? Then look at how you treat his mother. I've sat in hundreds of boardrooms, negotiated billion-dollar contracts, and fired men who thought they could talk down to me. But tonight wasn't about power. It was about patience, because sometimes silence is louder than pride. Daniel finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "My mom worked hard all her life. Everything I know about responsibility, I learned from her." Mr. Anderson smiled condescendingly. Of course, hard work is admirable, but you know how the world works. At a certain level, it's all about positioning, being in the right rooms with the right people." He looked at me again. No offense, Mrs. Collins. I'm sure you understand. I tilted my head slightly. Oh, I understand better than you think. Mrs. Anderson gave a little chuckle. I'm sure you do. The conversation drifted toward business again, their recent ventures, new investors, global expansion plans. They spoke with the confidence of people who believed they knew everyone worth knowing. And when they mentioned Everwin Group, again, my company, I stayed quiet, letting them reveal what they really thought. Apparently, their CEO started from nothing, some single mother who climbed her way up. Impressive, but rare. I doubt she'd have much in common with our circles. My spoon paused midair. A single mother. He said it so casually, like it was an interesting trivia fact, not a story of blood and tears. I set my spoon down gently. Sometimes the ones who start from nothing end up building the tables that others fight to sit at. He blinked, uncertain if it was a compliment or a warning. The air grew heavier after that. Even Lily seemed to sense that something was shifting, though she couldn't quite name it. Mrs. Anderson forced a leg laugh. Oh, we're just curious. After all, it's all business. No need to get philosophical. Yes, I said softly, but business and character aren't so different. Both reveal who you truly are when no one's watching. She smiled stiffly. I suppose that's true. And then it happened, the moment that changed the entire night. A voice came from behind me, warm and surprised. Madam Collins? I turned. The restaurant owner, a middle-aged man in a crisp white shirt and apron, stood there, eyes bright with recognition. Madam, it's been too long, he exclaimed, stepping forward. Everyone here still talks about you. The entire table fell silent. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson froze. The owner continued, completely unaware of the storm he'd just unleashed. You're the reason this place even exists. When you helped me with the loan years ago, I'll never forget your kindness. He looked around proudly. This woman is a legend, you know, the kindest businesswoman I've ever met. The silence at the table thickened. I could feel the weight of 3 pairs of eyes on me. Daniel's wide with confusion, Lily's uncertain, her parents stunned and embarrassed. Mr. Anderson's wineglass trembled slightly as he set it down. You know her? The owner laughed. Know her? Everyone in the business district knows Madam Collins. He turned to me with a grin. Still with Everwin Group? Right. And there it was, the sound of my company's name hitting the table, not from me, but from the lips of someone who spoke with genuine respect. I smiled gently, my hands folded on the table. Yes, I said quietly, I suppose I am. And in that moment, I didn't need to say another word, because everything, every judgment, every assumption, every little smirk began to crumble right there, in the silence that followed. The restaurant owner bowed slightly. Madam, it's truly an honor to have you here again. Mr. Anderson's wineglass trembled slightly as he set it down, and I, still calm, still smiling, said, Please, don't make a fuss. I'm just here as a mother tonight.
The silence that followed was the kind you could feel, thick, heavy, pressing against the walls. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson sat completely still, their faces frozen in polite confusion. Daniel blinked rapidly as though trying to understand if he'd just misheard. The restaurant owner, however, was all warmth and sincerity. His smile was genuine, the kind of smile that came from deep gratitude, not social flattery. Madam Collins, he said again, stepping closer, you look the same as ever. I'm so sorry I didn't recognize you sooner. You should have told us you were coming. We would have prepared the private suite for you. I waved my hand gently. Please, Mr. Lee, that's not necessary. I'm perfectly comfortable here. But he shook his head adamantly. Oh no, I can't allow that. The last time you came, the staff talked about it for weeks. You're the reason this restaurant survived a pandemic. You helped us when no one else would. At least let us offer you our best service tonight." Across the table, Mrs. Anderson's smile had vanished completely. Her hand hovered near her wine glass, trembling slightly. Mr. Anderson looked between us, eyes narrowing as though his mind was racing through possibilities. You two know each other?" he asked, his voice quieter now, a touch of unease creeping in. Mr. Lee chuckled kindly. "Of course. Madam is one of our first and most respected investors. Without her, this restaurant wouldn't exist. She even helped us with the business model back then, gave us contacts, guidance, everything." The color drained from their faces almost instantly. Lily looked from me to Daniel, her lips parted in shock. "Investor?" she whispered. "Mom, I don't understand." Daniel leaned closer to me, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, what's going on?" I looked at him, my son, my heart, and smiled softly. "Eat your dinner, son," I said. He stared at me for a moment longer, searching my face for answers I wasn't ready to give. But he obeyed, slowly lifting his fork again. Mr. Lee turned back to me, still beaming. "Madam, the staff would be so thrilled to see you. They still talk about that day you came to thank them personally after the renovation. I've never seen anyone in your position treat people with such kindness." "I remember," I said quietly. "They deserved it. It wasn't easy keeping this place alive." "Please," he said again, bowing slightly, "let me move you to the VIP table. It's already empty. It would be our honor." I chuckled softly. "Mr. Lee, if you insist, I'll think you're trying to embarrass me in front of my son's in-laws." He looked puzzled for a second, then glanced at the Andersons, who were now staring down at their plates like children caught cheating on a test. Mrs. Anderson tried to recover her composure, forcing a strained laugh. "Oh, we had no idea you were involved with this restaurant, Mrs. Collins." I smiled faintly. "That's quite all right. You couldn't have known." Her eyes darted nervously towards her husband, who was still processing everything. Mr. Anderson finally found his voice. You invested here? That's impressive, truly impressive." Mr. Lee laughed again. "Invested? Oh, she didn't just invest. She believed in us when no one else did. Most people thought we were finished. But Madam here, she saw potential." He turned to the Andersons with pride. "You know who she is, don't you?" They didn't answer. He smiled wider, oblivious to their discomfort. "Mrs. Bennett, CEO of Aurora Holdings." For a few seconds, no one moved. The sound of those letters against the heart of the restaurant echoed in the silence. Aurora Holdings, the same company the Andersons had been talking about just minutes ago, the one they had been trying to get a meeting with for months. Mrs. Anderson's hand slipped slightly, her fork clattering against the plate. Her face turned pale, lips parting in disbelief. Mr. Anderson's eyes widened, darting to mine, then back to his wife, then to Daniel. You are Mrs. Bennett?" I nodded calmly. "That's right. I changed my last name years ago, after my husband passed. My business kept his." Daniel looked stunned. "Mom, Aurora Holdings? You're the CEO?" I took a deep breath, my tone calm but kind. "Yes, Daniel, I am." He blinked several times, almost laughing in disbelief. "All this time you never said anything." I smiled gently. "Because I wanted you to grow on your own, not under my shadow." Across from us, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson were silent, truly silent, for the first time that evening. Mrs. Anderson's posture had changed completely. Gone was that sharp confidence. In its place was a kind of nervous humility. Mr. Anderson cleared his throat, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Well, this is quite a surprise. We had no idea we were in such, distinguished company." I met his gaze steadily. Company is only distinguished by how it treats others, don't you think? Of course, absolutely. Lily, bless her heart, looked near tears. "Mrs. Bennet, Mom, I didn't know either. I swear I didn't." I reached over and touched her hand gently. "I know, dear, and you've never treated me any differently. That's what matters." Mr. Lee, still smiling, looked between us. "Ah, I see there's family business to discuss. I'll leave you to your evening, but madam, please, anything you need, it's on the house tonight." "Thank you, Mr. Lee," I said warmly. "You've always been too kind." He bowed again and walked away. And then, silence. The kind that fills the space between pride and regret. Daniel leaned forward slowly, his voice soft but full of awe. "Mom, you're the CEO they were trying to meet with?" "Yes," I said simply. "The one they said was impossible to reach." Mrs. Anderson looked like she wanted to disappear into the tablecloth. Mr. Anderson forced another stiff smile. His earlier arrogance now cracked like glass. "Well, this is truly enlightening. We had no idea." I gave a small, forgiving smile. "That's all right. Most people don't." And then, after a beat, I added quietly, "Sometimes the people you overlook are the ones who hold the doors you're trying to open." No one spoke after that. Even the sound of clinking glasses and soft jazz around us seemed far away, fading into the background of an evening none of them would ever forget. Daniel sat quietly beside me, still processing everything. Lily reached for my hand under the table and gave it a gentle squeeze, a gesture of quiet respect that didn't need words. And me? I just smiled, because the truth was finally out, not through anger, not through revenge, but through the quiet grace of being exactly who I was all along. The waiter arrived to clear the table, but no one moved. The air was still thick with shock when Mr. Lee's voice echoed again from across the room. "We're honored to have you again, Mrs. Bennet, CEO of Aurora Holdings." Every fork froze midair. And this time, no one dared to underestimate the poor mother ever again.
For a long, uncomfortable moment, no one spoke. Only the quiet clinking of dishes from other tables filled the air, while at ours, silence reigned like judgment itself. I watched the color drain from their faces. The same people who, minutes ago, laughed about humble lifestyles and simple tastes now looked like they were struggling to breathe in the weight of their own words. Mr. Anderson cleared his throat, forcing a dry laugh. "Well, this is quite a coincidence, isn't it?" Mrs. Anderson nodded quickly, her eyes darting everywhere except toward me. "Yes, such a funny mix-up. We were just joking earlier, of course." I smiled faintly. "Ah, joking." She gave a high, nervous laugh. "Yes, you know how dinner talk can be. We were just trying to make conversation." I leaned back slightly, studying them. My face stayed calm, but my words carried a quiet edge. I've heard enough jokes in life to know when the laughter hides pride. The laughter died immediately. Lily's cheeks were pink, her eyes glistening. "Mom, Dad, please," she whispered. "This is so embarrassing." She turned to me with genuine sorrow in her expression. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Bennet. I swear we didn't mean to." I reached across the table, touching her hand gently. "It's all right, dear. You didn't do anything wrong." She shook her head, her voice breaking. "They shouldn't have treated you like that. I told them you were kind, that Daniel was raised by someone special, but they—" Mrs. Anderson interrupted quickly, desperate to regain control. "Lily, darling, we didn't treat her badly. We were just unaware, that's all." Mr. Anderson nodded, forcing another smile. "Yes, completely unaware. Had we known—" I cut him off softly. "Had you known I was rich, you mean?" His mouth opened, but no words came. Daniel sat quietly, his jaw tight, eyes lowered. The guilt in his face was unmistakable, not because he'd done something wrong, but because he'd watched it happen, because he'd let me come here dressed in simplicity and hadn't stopped the small humiliations that piled up. I looked at him and smiled. "It's all right, Daniel." He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. "No, Mom, it's not. I should have—" "Shh," I said gently. "Sometimes the best lessons are learned in silence." I stood slowly, taking my napkin and setting it neatly beside my plate. "Excuse me for a moment," I said softly. "I'll be right back." Mrs. Anderson jumped to her feet. "Oh, please, Mrs. Bennet, let me—" "It's fine. Stay seated." And I walked away, leaving them to stew in their own discomfort. As I stepped toward the restroom, I caught a glimpse of the reflection in the mirrored wall. Mrs. Anderson leaning in close to her husband, whispering furiously. I could almost read her lips. "She's the CEO. Do you realize what this means? For us, for the company?" Mr. Anderson's eyes darted nervously toward Daniel. "We have to fix this. If she's offended, we'll lose everything." Lily sat still, her eyes downcast, hands trembling slightly. And Daniel, my sweet son, he looked at them with something that wasn't anger, but disappointment. Like he was seeing his in-laws for who they truly were, maybe for the first time. I took my time washing my hands, giving them space to wrestle with their thoughts. Money changes nothing about who people are. It only strips away the masks they wear. By the time I returned, the table was eerily quiet. Every face turned toward me as I approached, their smiles now too wide, too forced. "Mrs. Bennet," Mr. Anderson said quickly, standing up. "Please, sit. We were just saying what a pleasure it is to meet you, really. We feel so honored." I nodded, taking my seat gracefully. "That's kind of you." Mrs. Anderson leaned forward eagerly. "You must think terribly of us after all that nonsense earlier." I folded my hands in my lap. "I don't think terribly of anyone. I just observe." She laughed nervously. "Well, I can assure you we have nothing but respect for you. In fact, if there's ever an opportunity to work with Aurora Holdings—" I raised my hand slightly, cutting her off without raising my voice. "Please, let's not mix business with dinner." Her smile faltered, and for the first time that evening, she fell completely silent. I turned to Lily, whose eyes were red. "You love my son?" She nodded immediately. "With all my heart." "Then love him for who he is, not for what I have or what your parents think I can offer." She nodded again, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I will." I turned to Daniel next. "And you, my boy, never feel small for the simplicity you live with. You've grown into a man with a good heart. That's worth more than all the titles in the world." His eyes met mine, full of emotion. "Thank you, Mom." The Andersons stayed quiet, unsure whether to apologize again or stay silent. Finally, Mrs. Anderson spoke in a low, brittle voice. "We truly are sorry, Mrs. Bennet. We misjudged." I looked at her, calm, not angry. Misjudgment happens. It's what you do after that reveals your true character. She swallowed hard, glancing down. Mr. Anderson tried to smile, his pride flickering between fear and shame. "Perhaps we can start over, as family, and maybe even business partners someday."
I took a slow sip of water before answering. Perhaps. Then I set my glass down and added quietly, but remember, business deals can be repaired. Respect once broken takes longer to heal. The air was heavy again, not with arrogance, this time with realization. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't argue. It just settles in the chest like a quiet ache. I stood again, ready to leave. "It's been a long evening," I said. "I think that's enough for tonight." Daniel started to rise too, but I touched his shoulder gently. "Stay a little longer. Enjoy dessert with your wife." He looked at me with gratitude and something else, pride. As I turned to go, I paused. They were all watching me, 3 faces of guilt, 1 of love. I smiled softly, not out of cruelty, but truth. "Don't worry," I said, my voice calm, even gentle. "Your words won't affect the deal." Relief flickered across Mr. Anderson's face, but only for a second. Then I finished. "But they'll always echo in your daughter's marriage." No one spoke. Not a single breath broke the silence. And as I walked out of that restaurant, I knew I hadn't taught them about wealth. I had taught them something rarer. That dignity, once tested, never needs to raise its voice.
The night air outside the restaurant felt cooler than it should have. Maybe it was the contrast, the warmth and tension we just left behind, or maybe it was relief. For the first time that evening, I could breathe. I had barely taken 3 steps toward the curb when I heard Daniel's voice behind me. "Mom!" I turned. He jogged toward me, his face flushed, eyes wide, a storm of guilt, confusion, and something else. Realization. He stopped right in front of me, struggling to find words. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I smiled softly, looking at the lights flickering in the restaurant windows. "I didn't hide it from you," I said. "I just never thought it mattered." He frowned. "Didn't matter? Mom, you're the CEO of Aurora Holdings. You've been on magazine covers. You helped that restaurant survive, for God's sake. And you show up tonight like you have nothing." I met his eyes, calm and unshaken. "That's exactly why I did it." He blinked, confused. I took a breath and said, "Because I wanted you to build your own world, not live in mine." He fell silent, his gaze softening. "When your father passed, I could have spoiled you. I could have handed you a life ready-made, cars, accounts, opportunities. But then, what would you have learned? How to earn? How to appreciate? How to see people for who they are?" His voice dropped. "You wanted me to learn humility." I smiled. "No, Daniel. I wanted you to learn clarity." He frowned slightly. "Humility can be mistaken for weakness, but clarity, that's seeing who values you for your heart, not your wallet. That's the difference between friends and opportunists, between love and transaction." He nodded slowly, understanding beginning to dawn. Lily appeared at the doorway then, her hands wringing nervously, eyes red. She approached cautiously, like someone stepping into the aftermath of a storm. "Mrs. Bennett," she began, her voice trembling. I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. My parents..." I reached out, placing a gentle hand on her arm. "Sweetheart, you don't need to apologize for them." Tears welled up in her eyes. "But I'm ashamed. I kept telling them how kind and genuine you were, and they treated you like someone beneath them." She nodded, eyes downcast. "That's what pride does when it hasn't been humbled yet." Her tears spilled freely now. "I swear I don't think like them.
I love Daniel for who he is, not for his last name or what he owns. I smiled warmly, brushing a tear from her cheek with my thumb. I know you do, Lily, and that's why I'm not angry. She looked up at me, startled. You've got a good heart, I said quietly. Keep it strong, even when your parents forget theirs. She nodded, crying harder now. Daniel wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. Behind them, I saw the restaurant doors open again. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson stepped out, slower, quieter, deflated. They didn't look like the polished, confident people who'd walked in earlier. They looked small, like the air around them had been sucked out. They hesitated, as if wanting to approach, but I could see the shame written all over their faces. Instead, they gave a polite nod from afar, the kind people give when they've realized words would only make things worse. I nodded back, simply and respectfully. No grudge, no anger, just a quiet acknowledgement of truth revealed. Daniel exhaled heavily once they'd gone. That was intense. I chuckled softly. Sometimes the truth doesn't need volume to be heard. He smiled faintly. They'll never forget tonight. I won't either. We stood in silence for a moment, the kind that carries meaning without words. Then, with a small grin, I said, Now tell me, my son, did the soup at least taste good? He laughed through his lingering guilt. You always find humor in everything, don't you? I said, teasingly. It's a mother's secret survival skill. Without humor, we drown in the seriousness of life. Lily stepped forward then. Mrs. Bennet, thank you. For what? I asked. For not embarrassing them more than they embarrass themselves. For choosing grace when you could have chosen revenge. I smiled warmly. Grace teaches longer lessons than revenge ever will. Daniel walked me to the car, holding the door open. He hesitated before getting in himself, as if still wrestling with something inside. As we pulled away from the restaurant, he finally spoke, voice quiet but firm. You didn't just test them tonight, did you? I turned my head slightly, looking at him. What do you mean? His eyes stayed on the road ahead. You tested me, too. I smiled, that knowing, motherly smile he'd seen all his life. Maybe a little, I admitted. He looked at me then, a mixture of respect and affection in his eyes. And did I pass? I reached over, resting my hand on his arm. You didn't just pass, Daniel. You proved exactly why I never needed to tell you how much I had, because I already knew how much you were worth. We drove in silence for a while after that. The city lights blurred past, reflections dancing on the windshield, soft, golden, forgiving. Lily leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder, eyes closed, while he held her hand. They looked peaceful again, grounded, human. And I, sitting beside them, felt a quiet satisfaction. Not because I'd revealed who I was, but because I'd reminded them and myself that truth, when spoken calmly, can humble pride more deeply than wealth ever could. As the car turned toward home, I looked out the window and whispered to myself, appearances fade, but character, that's what stays when the masks fall.
And that night, I knew every mask had fallen exactly where it belonged. It's strange how silence feels different after a storm. For weeks after that dinner, my life returned to its quiet rhythm. The sound of the kettle whistling every morning, the chatter of the bus engine, the peaceful hum of a small apartment that had never cared for grandeur. But beneath that calm, something had changed. Not in me, but around me. Daniel called more often, not just to check on me, but to talk. Real talk. The kind we'd lost over the years. About his dreams, his worries, how he wanted to be a better husband and a better man. And Lily, sweet, honest Lily, began to visit on her own sometimes. She'd bring pastries, tea, and the same shy smile she had the first day I met her. But now, there was a new kind of respect in her eyes. Not out of obligation or guilt, but genuine affection. It was on one of those quiet Sundays that Daniel called and said, "Mom, Lily's parents, they want to see you again." I paused. "Do they now?" He hesitated. "They've been different lately. Humble. They insisted on coming to your place." I smiled to myself. Then let them. The day they came, the air smelled of rain. I'd just brewed tea when I heard a gentle knock. When I opened the door, I almost didn't recognize them. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson stood there. No designer clothes, no gold watches, no rehearsed smiles. Just simple, soft expressions, and a Tupperware container wrapped in a kitchen towel. Mrs. Anderson said quietly, "Mrs. Bennett, we hope you don't mind. We brought something." She held up the container like a peace offering. "Homemade stew. It's the one Lily said you liked." I felt my heart soften immediately. "Please, come in," I said, stepping aside. Inside, they sat on my worn but clean sofa, looking around at my modest living room, the shelves filled with old books, family photos, and a few potted plants that had somehow survived my neglect. There was no awkward tension this time, just quiet humility. Mrs. Anderson clasped her hands together. "We owe you an apology, a real one." Her husband nodded. "That night, we behaved terribly. We judged you before we even knew you. And to think, we prided ourselves on being good people." I smiled gently, pouring tea for them both. Good people make mistakes too. The only difference is whether they choose to learn from them. They exchanged a look, one of shared guilt and understanding. After a moment, Mrs. Anderson sighed. "It's funny," she said softly. "I spent years teaching my daughter how to recognize quality in clothes, homes, people. And yet that night, it was you who showed us what real quality looks like." Her husband added quietly, "We thought wealth made us important, but sitting across from you that night, after realizing who you were, it made us feel small. Not because of your success, but because of our pride." I look at them both, not with judgment, but with compassion. We all wear masks, sometimes to protect ourselves, sometimes to impress others. But kindness, I paused, meeting their eyes, should never be one of them. For the first time, they smiled. Not the polished, picture-perfect smiles from that restaurant, but the soft, weary kind that only honesty allows. Mrs. Anderson reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. "Thank you for not humiliating us that night. You had every right to." I shook my head. Humiliation doesn't teach. Grace does. When they left, they hugged me, a little awkwardly at first, but sincerely. And as they walked out into the rain, I felt something settle inside me. Closure. Not the kind that comes from revenge, but the kind that comes from understanding. Over the next few months, I watched Daniel and Lily grow in ways I hadn't expected. They moved into a modest home, rejecting the luxury condo Lily's parents had offered. "We want to make it on our own," Daniel said proudly. Lily started volunteering at a local shelter, often texting me pictures of the children she helped. "I never realized how much happiness simplicity brings," she'd write. And Daniel, my son who once thought success was measured in status, began spending weekends fixing things around my apartment, bringing groceries and cooking dinner for me. One night while we were eating together, he looked up and said, "Mom, I used to think you were hiding from life. Now I see you were actually living it right."
I smiled, my heart full. You figured that out faster than I did. Every now and then, the Andersons would visit. Not often, but when they did, it was always with warmth and humility. They even invited me to their home once, and to my surprise, it was simpler now too. The grand paintings replaced with family photos, the designer furniture swapped for comfort. We wanted to start fresh, Mrs. Anderson had said. We built our lives like glass houses, beautiful but fragile. I had smiled, and now you're building with stone. One evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone by my window with a cup of tea. The city was quiet, the night sky dimming into that soft in-between where stars and streetlights share the same space. I thought about how everything had unfolded, how one simple dinner had changed so many hearts. People often believe wealth gives power, but that night taught me something else entirely. Wealth may open doors, but kindness keeps them open. And the truest kind of richness isn't in what you own, but in how you make others feel when they have nothing to offer you. I took a deep breath and smiled at the horizon, where the first blush of dawn began to rise. The golden light crept through my curtains, spilling gently across my small kitchen table, the same one that had seen tears, laughter, and now peace. I whispered to myself, almost like a prayer. Sometimes you have to act poor to remind others what true richness looks like. As the sun rose higher, the city began to stir. Cars starting, voices echoing down the street, life awakening again. I watched from my little window, the CEO no one would recognize in a crowd, and felt a quiet, unshakable joy. Because no matter how much money I had in the bank, this simplicity, this peace, this truth was the only wealth that ever truly mattered. And that night, though long past, still whispered its lesson in every dawn that followed.